Hello and welcome. This is Unhelkar. So in this chapter, we are going to focus on visualizing, pictorially representing what happens inside a use case. If you remember in the previous chapter, we learned actors and use cases and use case diagrams. Here we take one use case out of that use case diagram and we try to visualize, picturize the flow, the statements that we had put in the use case on a diagram. No surprise, this is a very popular diagram because it is effectively a flow chart. You have the flow coming top to down, but you add more value to the flow chart by separating the activities within the flow chart in partitions or swim lanes. These partitions or swim lanes are the new addition in an activity diagram that did not exist in a flow chart. And guess what these partitions represent? Effectively the actors. So if I have a use case in which there is a bank teller involved and a customer involved, then I will have two partitions which were also called swim lanes in the earlier versions of UML, in which I will position the activities that correspond to the teller and the customer, and then whatever responses the system gives is your third swim lane partition. The activities are going to more or less correspond to the use case statements that you have written. So remember, this is not a linear process. We are following the concepts of agile, which means we are going to iterate not only in developing a solution but also in modeling good requirements. So you do some actors, you document some use cases, you don't complete use case diagrams, you come here to the activity diagrams, you visualize the activities, you draw the diagram, you create the partitions, there will be if then else's, there will be loops going back. And when you draw an activity diagram, my experience is it goes and updates the use case that you have documented. If you honestly and carefully do an activity diagram, you will find it goes and adds more value to the use case you have documented. A common question asked is, then why do both? Why not go and do only an activity diagram? Well, you can, but I don't, and I prefer that not just an activity diagram, not just a use case documentation, but both going together. Eventually we will see in the next chapter itself that we have to identify good business objects, business domain objects, classes really. We can do that much easily through a well documented use case. But if we have to optimize a process, we have to do a walkthrough, it is much easier to do with an activity diagram. So the partitions are one value add. The other important value add is showing a fork and a join, that is parallel processing. Activity diagrams allow us to show 2 or 3 or more activities happening in parallel. Classic flow chart is linear, whereas an activity diagram does allow depicting parallel processes, which when they finish and we reach a bar, the join, then the next activity starts. I also add more value to my activity diagrams by creating a pseudo partition or swim lane. in which I add lots of notes, and those notes are excellent descriptors of what I intend to show through an activity diagram. So both the previous discussion on use cases and use case diagrams and this discussion on activity diagrams together is enough for us to understand for whom we are developing the solution, how they are going to use our solution. The model of the problem space. We are positioning ourselves for a very good quality, high quality design, a high valued object oriented design by doing these exercises. In fact, activity diagrams are representing business processes. How a customer withdraws cash, how a passenger buys an airplane ticket, or how a patient registers himself in a hospital. These are business processes. So the activity diagrams became so popular right from the early days of UML, mid 1990s, that there is a whole suite of rich notations which are called business process modeling notations, BPMN. And you can go up to bpmn.org and see that these rich set of notations also available through various tools, including some of those notations in Star UML, certainly in Visio, Microsoft Visio, if you are using it. And you can put total dedication in creating BPM, business process models. So try and explore that as well. Remember, this is a iterative approach. Remember that activity diagrams are fundamentally flowcharts but providing a lot more value, and that activity diagram, each activity diagram can correspond to a use case. And the final word, those interaction overview diagrams are also similar, but they are at a very high level, and the activity equivalent in the interaction overview diagram could be a full use case, could be a sequence diagram, could be anything. It is at a macro level. I hope you are finding this of value, because I am thoroughly enjoying presenting this course. Stay in touch. Bye bye.